has started. This meeting is on Facebook Live.
Mr. Harkins?
Yes. Here.
Mr. Brown?
Here.
Mr. Ames?
Here.
Mrs. Becker?
Here.
Mr. Lennox?
Here.
Mr. Stanford? Mr. Stanford?
Glenn?
There. And Mayor McCann?
Here.
All right.
Here, yes, sorry, I was a little tardy.
Chris, are we in compliance with Freedom of Information Act?
Yes, sir, we are.
Would you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Today's invocation will be given by Pastor Michael Carr from Central Church. Pastor.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the privilege of letting me be here with you just for a moment or two. Let's bow our heads together. Dear Heavenly Father, I honor you. I thank you for your kindness and mercy. I ask God that you would bless these folks that are serving with diligence. I pray that you give them wisdom, give them grace, the power of forbearance. And I pray, God, that you would give them the ability, Lord, to work through every challenging thought and difficulty that we face as a community. I ask for you to bless them. And I pray, God, that you would give them a sense of fulfillment for the service they're providing. And we give you praise and we thank you for all that you do for us. You're so good. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor.
Thank you.
Okay, can we have approval of the agenda?
Move for approval of the agenda as delivered.
Second.
All in favor, please raise their right hand. Good. Thank you very much. Okay, the approval of the minutes.
Move for approval of the minutes for the Town Council workshop on May 11th, as well as May 18th, 2021.
Second.
Are there any additions or subtractions to the minutes? All in favor, please raise their right hand. Thank you very much. Before we get into the report from the town manager, I must say that I forgot last week was Tammy's birthday. Tammy, belated happy birthday.
Thank you very much for thinking of me.
Thank you. And this week is Bill's birthday is today. Happy birthday, Bill.
Thank you. Thank
Happy
you very much. Glad to be here.
Thank you.
Report of the town manager.
Yes, sir. Good evening, Mayor and Council, members of the public. Just a couple items, and they both have to do with our awesome fire department. Scholarships for new firefighters were secured by our EMS captain, Tina Sanders, who worked with TCL of the Low Country to secure scholarships for 6 new firefighters that actually begin class tomorrow. So congrats, Tina. Thank you. And this is all through and part of the South Carolina's free workforce training program, and a cost to us a savings of a little more than $13,000. So great job to Chief Tadlock and definitely to Captain Sanders. We also have some more good news out of the fire department as part of the water rescue assets for the regional rescue team. Let's see here, through the Homeland Security grants in South Carolina, our department has secured some funds and equipment. And over the last 2 years, we have acquired a few things, an inflatable rescue boat, a water deployment trailer, and most recently, they just purchased a 17-foot Prodigy shallow water boat that's designed and built specifically with floodwater and swift water operations in mind. So congrats to them, congrats to our department, and congrats to that overall effort for securing those funds and the training and equipment. So hats off to them. That's my report for tonight, sir.
Thank you. General reports by members of the council. Okay, we'll go into reports by the community services. Mr. Harkins?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Community Service Committee has met on 2 occasions since our last meeting. The purpose was to interview a list of individuals that came forward to express their interest in public service. The committee met, and I think, speaking, if I may, on behalf of the committee, I think everyone was exceptionally impressed with every individual that came forward. It continues to remind us of the community spirit, the volunteerism, and the quality of people on this island that wish to give back. The committee met and came to a recommendation for town council consideration, and the results of that will be shared with all at the next town council meeting. We cannot do it today because it did not get out to the committee and so my thanks to all members of the committee and to those in the public that are watching that participated. We're very proud of your participation and very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Report of the public planning, Mr. Ames.
Thank you, Mayor. My report's really by way of an announcement. There will be a meeting of the Public Planning Committee tomorrow at 3 o'clock to address 4 items: review and recommend the family compound and family subdivision, review and recommend the 2020 low country natural hazard mitigation plan, and then discuss the research that staff has done on short-term rentals, and finally to discuss the first set of 2021 LMO amendments. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, David. The Finance Committee, Mr. Lennox.
Thank you, Mayor. The Finance Committee last met on May 4th, and I reported to Council on that same day of that meeting. The next meeting will be June 15th, and we will review the 11th month interim statement on revenues and expenses.
Thank you, Mr. Lennox. Appearance by citizens.
Yes, sir. Today we have 4 citizens signed up to speak. First being Patricia Solstice. Ms. Solstice. Ms. Solstice, are you on the line? Second being Mr. Ed Bray. Ed Bray. Mr. Bray.
I'm here. Yeah,
I'm
here.
Sir. Go ahead, sir.
Good afternoon, Mayor McCann and fellow council representatives. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Again, my name is Ed Bray, General Manager for Beach Properties at Hilton Head. We are a professional vacation property management company who specializes in rental accommodations for visitors and tourists. I've been in the hospitality industry for 16 years, and one of the fundamental things that I've learned is that the best way to promote tourism is to retain the tourists we already have. For several years, Hilton Head has faced a shortage in the labor market. This year, the shortage has been unlike anything we've seen before. Businesses have been forced to reduce hours, close their doors, and work excessive hours just to provide minimal service. Recently, I've experienced some distressing situations with the service providers, such as cleaners, bringing children with them and as they work with no other choice. This creates a bad situation for both parents and their children and can compromise the quality of work and directly impacts our tourists. Let me put that in perspective. The island has over 45 professionally managed companies who serve over 6,500 homes and villas. These companies rely heavily on service providers such as our cleaners, pool companies, landscapers, and others. At beach properties, we currently have over 30 housekeeping companies which clean our 420 homes and villas. We represent a small portion of the industry, and so you can imagine what the true need is once we factor in the other 6,100 properties, 3,000 plus hotel rooms, 250 restaurants, pool companies, landscapers, and other small businesses that are impacted by this labor shortage. In housekeeping alone, it's estimated it takes approximately 1,300 housekeepers to handle a traditional Saturday in our segment of the industry. That is not factoring in the need of the hotel industry, timeshares, and others. In 2020, Beach Properties was unable to fill our need of inspectors, which often left properties in less than desirable condition. To date, paid seasonal inspectors employed by Beach Properties earn over $20 an hour, yet we've been unable to meet our stated goal by more than 25%. We need more cleaners, and the Children's Center's Saturday program is one way to increase the work pool. Currently, it will be in place until just after Labor Day with the $30,000 we have raised. However, additional funding, whether through the ATAX funding or general fund, would allow for the center to extend this program beyond September. It will also help cover the cost for additional staffing, which would provide greater services to the children, resulting in more entries into the workforce. By funding this program, the town will take direct and decisive action to help alleviate the labor shortage on one of the most crucial tourist preparation days. The funding also fits well within the town's mission and core values of providing excellence in service, as well as it provides favorable economic impact by alleviating the stated need. I encourage each of the councilmen and women to consider our request for the ATAX funding and or general funding for the Children's Center, not only to promote tourism, but to enable a greater level of service in our community, our mutual guests, in accordance with our stated goals. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Bray. Mr. Babel, Frank Babel.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to speak with council today, but first wanted to thank you and the town staff in advance for bike and pedestrian access and safety funding that you included in our 22 fiscal year budget. Thank you very much, folks. It's a little bit in advance, but I appreciate it. We all appreciate it. Okay. But now the topic at hand. All indications are that we're going to have an extraordinarily busy summer that it's going to top last year's bike boom. One of the biggest challenges, however, is the increasing popularity of electric pedal-assisted e-bikes on our pathways and beaches. These bikes are great for commuters and are well suited for older or handicapped people who love to bike but struggle pedaling regular bikes. E-bikes are very heavy. They require skill to operate, and some are capable of speeds of 20 to 30 miles an hour. While the vast majority of riders operate these bikes sensibly, regrettably, some are being operated and speeding on our beaches and pathways by reckless or unskilled people. Our pathways were not designed to accommodate a crowded mix of walkers, bikers, and also fast-riding e-bikes. Basically, this new e-technology has gotten ahead of our governance. We think it's important for the town to catch up and take regulatory and operational steps to properly integrate the safe operation of these bikes into our normal bikeway system. The bike shops agree that steps need to be taken, and we all agree that excess speed, weight, and recklessness of a few people are our primary concern. E-bikes are part of the future, and we need to learn how they best fit here on Hilton Head Island. We've looked for best practices nationally, and we've shared a number of these and other ideas with town staffs. Another and last challenge I'll talk about is the e-scooters that have just started being rented from a shop on Pope Ave. These e-scooters offer functional micro-transportation and are very popular in cities. The problem here is that some of our pathways and roads are at or near capacity, to say the least. In our opinion, allowing the use of another form of motorized transportation on our pathways is against code and is a step too far. Accordingly, we ask that the town give serious consideration to banning the sale, use, or rental of e-scooters on Hilton Head Island before this gets to be added to the mix and introduces yet another element to an already crowded situation. This concludes my remark. I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Babel. Mr. Hoagland?
Yes, thank you. Afternoon, Skip Hoagland, Windmill Harbor, and no annex. Like to share facts for future depositions. Let's start with Diane Bush. How can you be town lawyer when you are not a resident of the town? In fact, my neighbor in Windmill Harbor. Why do you allow the illegal issue and use of tax funds? Mark Orlando, you got caught doing an illegal membership drive for Bill Miles using Bluffton Town employees and also illegally used tax money to join the chamber versus your own money. You are from Canada, and what do you know about $1 million aid tax taken to Canada by Bill Miles? McCann, Lennox, and Harkins, you all lied and committed fraud, saying you saw the chamber accounting with Bill Miles and Ray Deal. Glenn Stanford, you were the past chairman of the secret Greater Island Council. We will want to know a lot more and why Lennox and many Beaufort officials are secret members. Lennox Ames, you were the ringleaders of the latest fraudulent DMO contract with Bill Miles and schemed this with town lawyers Coltrane Finger and the chamber lawyers. Tamara Becker, what role did you play and why did you keep voting for funding when you have seen no accounting and know nothing about this? Alex Brown, perhaps the most honest person in this council. I hope you will assist in this upcoming lawsuit and investigations. McCann, Lennox, and Harkins, why did you scheme with Steve Riley all this funding to Bill Miles, and why did you assist in the bank loan of $200,000 in tax money to be privately used by Greg Alford and Kim Likens that many state lawyers and judges call an illegal criminal act? Curtis Coltrane, you were hired by Steve Riley many years ago. Then your former law partner, Greg Alford, was hired. Then Alford got caught at a criminal act, and you were hired again by Riley, and I guess Gruber behind it somehow. I'm looking forward to hearing more on this baton passing. McCann, why did you go to Italy and Washington, D.C., whining and dining on taxpayers' dime and hand carry a crystal lighthouse gift from Bill Miles as his current mayor puppet? Lawyer Gruber, why did you, as Steve Riley and John Troyer, illegally use and issue millions in tax funds, and why do you refuse a forensic audit of town records? Why did all council members allow the use of tax money to join the town as a chamber member? Why did many of you go to the chamber ball party quid pro quo? How can all of you vote to fund millions to the chamber in conflict and never seen the accounting? And worse, allow Bill Miles to tell all of you, none of your business what he does with his tax money. It's his secret sauce. Keep your mouth shut and do as you're told to do. Is this what your campaign promises were based on? I look forward to your sworn testimony with no perjury. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hoagland. Patricia Soltis, are you on the line?
I don't see her, Krista. That's it?
Okay.
Let's go.
All right, sir, that concludes appearance by citizens.
Thank you. Unfinished business, item number 11, second reading of proposed ordinance, amendments to official zoning map. Need a motion to proceed?
So moved.
Need a second? Need a second? Tammy seconds it, okay. Conversation by members of the council. Having heard none, do you call for the vote?
Certainly. Mr. Brown?
Support.
Mr. Ames?
Yes.
Mrs. Becker?
Yes.
Mr. Harkins?
Yes.
Mr. Lennox?
Yes.
Mr. Stanford?
For the motion.
Mayor McCann?
Yes.
Motion carries, sir.
New business, consideration of resolution honoring the legacy of Scott Parker Liggett. You gonna do that?
Sure, sir. Last month, Steve Riley sent an email to Mayor McCann on behalf of himself, Chuck Hawley, Greg DeLoach, and Charles Cousins, making a request of town council, respectful request of town council, to honor the legacy of our friend Scott Liggett. As such, they've requested that the lake at Jarvis Creek Park be named after Scott as Lake Liggett. This started off as a mid-island drainage project. Scott, working with our contractors at the time, came up with a design that the project include a park, and is now very popular as well as award-winning. Later, later next month, we will be hosting an event with Scott's family and with members of town council. All of you will be invited, as well as staff and some community members, to do this dedication should you pass this resolution. I hope you consider it very closely, and you honor Scott and his legacy for the town. With that, sir?
Need a vote?
Yes, sir.
Yes, it is a resolution.
Okay, is there any?
Yes. Move to proceed as recommended.
Second.
Third.
Roll call.
Sure. Mr. Harkins?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Support.
Mr. Ames?
Yes.
Mrs. Becker?
Absolutely.
Mr. Lennox?
Yes.
Mr. Stanford?
For the motion.
Mayor McCann?
Yes.
Motion carries, sir.
I have a question first.
Of course.
The next item starts at 5 o'clock.
The public hearing starts at 5 o'clock. Sir, we can do the second reading if you'd like to start that. Is that okay to do that,
Yeah.
or?
What I would suggest is, given that we have an executive session, why don't we go ahead and enter an executive session and then come out if we're not finished by that at 5 o'clock. Okay.
The agenda has on here, if you'll notice, item number 13 is supposed to start at 5 o'clock. That's the public hearing on the budget. Because it's only 20 past 4 now, what I'd like to do is move to the executive session that we were originally going to have at the end of the meeting. So I need a motion to move to the executive session.
Yeah. Move to amend the sequence as stated by the mayor.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Good, thank you very much. Will we
Recording has started.
Almost. One more button. You don't have
This
to-
meeting is being broadcast on Facebook Live.
Okay, we're back from executive session with nothing to report. Right now, we'll go on to item 13 in the agenda, the public hearing and final reading. Has anyone signed up to speak up on this matter, Krista?
No, sir.
No, so everyone online? With no further discussion, I'll close the, go on to Mr. Orlando to speak about the budget.
Thank you. One moment while I share my screen.
Go ahead. Sorry, my bad.
All right, Mayor and Council, excited to be here with you, showing you the second and final reading, the fiscal year 22 proposed consolidated budget. As we get into the second and final reading, I think it's really important to just simply pump the brakes and really touch on what the budget goals are. And that definitely is to deliver your strategic plan priorities. A little backwards, we're drafting a strategic plan while I'm also working with you to build the budget. But I think it's really clear as you came out of strategic plan what those priorities are. And for those members of the public listening or watching, it's important to note that we as a staff took into play all of those initiatives that council has prioritized as the highest priorities out of the comp plan and out of their really out of their priority list. We also seek to enhance customer service, innovation, and employee engagement, and that we invest in impactful capital projects and infrastructure with, of course, the overall goal to build a resilient Hilton Head Island community. And again, and I've said this several times, and it's the last time this fiscal year as we get into it, that we use our budget as a catalyst to implement that change and improvement. There's four major funds: our general fund, our operating budget, our stormwater utility fund that is derived mostly from stormwater utility fees, our CIP program fund, and debt service. You'll see that I'll draw your attention to the fiscal year 22 proposed budget, $96,838,322. I will draw your attention, and this was one of the questions coming out of workshop, to make sure that we pause and that I explain the carry forward and really the way the CIP is being looked at this year compared to last. Third line down under CIP, you see that the fiscal year 21 original budget started at a little more than 6.4 million. But there was a massive carry forward. There was a very large carry forward, more than $31 million or so, to bring the revised budget to $37.4 million. What I've done this year, and I'll show you in a couple of slides from now, is to the best of my ability, with one exception that I will explain, using carry forward dollars as well as new dollars into the CIP. And those were the capital projects, and those are the capital projects we've talked about this year. And so you can see the percent changes compared to original budget and revised budget year over year from 20 to 21 and then proposed to 22. Some budget highlights, and I went over these extensively at first reading and workshop, so I won't go over all of them, but they're in the presentation. This presentation will, of course, be available online as the first reading and workshop presentations are. But it's a balanced budget. Tax millage remains the same at 28.10, and it's a lean operating budget. It expands public safety staff and updates public safety equipment. It invests a little further in our maintenance and our operations of parks, landscaping, beach management. And then it looks to the future with long-range planning initiatives. I mentioned a lot of those in the workshop. Several long-range planning initiatives, including but not limited to some park planning, corridor planning, as well as those capital projects. And then that we exceed all essential levels of fund balance reserves. And we do have a very healthy financial position. But I will go back that we have conservative revenue projections and very careful expenditure choices. We realize that things look great. We still are in a pandemic, and so we will be monitoring our revenues and carefully monitoring our expenditures throughout the next fiscal year. It maintains the strategic interagency partnerships that I mentioned in the workshop. You see that we have a $28 million CIP program, and that the majority and percentage of those budgets are in beach, pathway, roads, parks, facilities, fleet, and land acquisition. A little further breakdown, you can see the various dollars, and this is what I was explaining on that first slide. Fiscal year 21 carry forward, we're carrying forward close to $11 million of existing projects, as well as some new dollars for next year. One of the points of, or one of the questions made during the workshop was asking how we stand in our region as it relates to our mill rate. And you can see that our mill rate is 28.1 compared to others. This definitely helps, and it shows a diversity of various revenue streams throughout our budget. And so we're able to hold a low mill rate. We have a great mill value, and it's growing year over year, and I showed that in the workshop. But this also shows us with the low millage, strong A-tax, H-tax, beach fees, whatnot. And so since the workshop, based upon your feedback and some of your direction, I removed Section 5 of the budget ordinance referencing Pine Island and dredging funds. I added Pine Island to the beach renourishment program, contemplating and anticipating a council agreement, some sort of contract soon into this next fiscal year, knowing there are annual costs to be incurred leading to the 2025 beach renourishment, and that the dredging funds will be considered throughout this fiscal year and discussed as we're getting into fiscal year 23's budget preparation and really budget approval. I confirmed and specified that the beach area parking enhancements are included as an element of facility enhancements in the CIP program. And so those are in this facility and equipment management, those funds. I added $250,000 to potential land acquisition opportunities in the CIP. And so knowing that most land will be more than that, I'll bring forward potential acquisitions, and should you collectively wish to acquire the property, that will be through a budget amendment. But $250,000 plus the baseline that I started with is showing in the CIP. And that there was another question, where will the fire fleet lease payments be carried? And those will be carried in the future fiscal year in the fire and rescue annual departmental budget, so you can see where those dollars will be pledged and how they'll be used, and they'll be a revenue source of H-tax. And so again, the consolidated budget made up of the four funds, and we're here tonight for second and final reading. Oh. All right. Yes, sir. There we go.
Good. Are there any questions by members of the council? Yes, Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just Two questions. Mr. Lando, the park enhancements and I guess the improvement in beach management. Do you have a measurement tool that's going to help us as we move into the future to determine if we are truly allocating enough funding? I can just, think about the improvements that we're making may take more care. I know that we've been challenged with increased visitation and the amount of trash that is left on our beaches, the lack of, enforcement of recycling and that sort of thing. I'm just curious to know how we're going to continue to get better at that, and your ideas of measuring it so that we can make qualified decisions in terms of budgeting year after year.
Correct. I think a lot of it has to do with expectations and inspection along the way. I'm not sure that at this point, a few months in, I have a derived measurement of where I'll be satisfied, where you'll be satisfied, the community will be satisfied in terms of park planning and development, let alone beach area parking and operations. I think I have to learn a little more. I know that the beach area parking plan that you all agreed to, really, as I came on board, and Josh has done such a good job with working with the consultant on, I think bringing that program forward and truly costing it out and understanding the revenues and understanding the, let's say, for lack of a better term, the enterprise fund of it, right? The monies derived from it go right back into the program. I think these are operational improvements to a degree that we're talking about, and that's my job. That's for me to figure out in the sense of what the expectations are in the community, and I have very high expectations. I think that we have to work smarter, not just harder, and we need to work really efficient. Internally, I have made some adjustments and am starting a program for simply having oversight of the beach area itself. And that's inclusive of everything we know. Every contract, every piece of trash, every ambassador. And it's not just about the beaches, it's about the parking, it's about the access, it's about all of it. So give me some time. I don't have the measurement tool. It is in the strategic plan as a policy directive and an operational improvement. So I do think that we should be talking about this type of work at time of strategic plan in the coming months.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. The second question, just for the benefit of the public, I guess I'd like just a little bit of explanation before I ask my more pointed question. The town is also a recipient of ATAX dollars that forward into our general fund. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And do those funds have the same stipulations that ATAX funds that are overseen by ATAC committee would have attached to them?
In the sense of use of allowed funds based upon the state requirements? Yes, sir.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you for that answer. So my last question, we've had, to my count, 3 organizations that have made requests to the town for assistance out of the general fund. That would be the First Tee, the Turtle Trackers, and now as we were in appearance by citizens today, request from the Children's Center. And we can argue back and forth the legitimacy. We can argue back and forth how those, build towards our long-term comprehensive plan and the core values attached to them. But at the end of the day, they're asking, and we are in a position where we have to answer. And I know that we've talked about developing some type of process to answer. I just want to get an update as to where we are on that.
Yes, sir. I have a draft memo. Josh and I and John Troyer and I have been working through a memo. Really, it's several pages so that it's all inclusive. So it's not just a quick memo that's vague. It's a specific memo that outlines and overviews all of the available funding sources. And it's arguably proposing a process that be put in place for these agencies to make requests. And those requests would, through the memo, and I haven't shared it all with you yet because I'm not done it yet, but will be through my office, as it would be the intake, and through mayor and to finance committee and through full council. So it would be a process. There would be some defined criteria, and it would, in my opinion, need to stand the test of time, where regardless of what the entity is, whether it's the solicitor's office or First T, that there's a clear process in place to make the ask, and as well the following year, if you come back, show the return, show the use, show the benefit. So it's not just about asking, it's about showing how those funds were used and how they've paid dividends in the community. So soon, Councilman, that memo will come to you all with that as a proposed process, really starting with arguably the first time council sees it formally would be at finance, the F&A committee through Councilman Lennox, and then through to you all.
Okay. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. And again, fine job to you and your team for putting forward this budget. I'm ready to move forward, just knowing that we have a few things that we need to get cleaned up so that the road is just a little bit smoother next time, right? So thank you, sir.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for Mr. Orlando on the budget? Tammy?
It's just a follow-up to that conversation. I just want to make clear that I understand this correctly. The ATEX monies that the town receives and puts into our funds are not there to simply distribute as in another level of ATEX funding at all. I see Tom shaking his head in agreement, and that is my belief as well. But it didn't sound through that conversation. There was confusion for me, and I just wanted to make that clear, that any of the additional grants that are coming through and structured via that memo description, those are for extraordinary funds that may be available at other times, but not from our general town ATEX funds provided in our budget. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear, because it wasn't to me the way it was being described. So that's really all I had to say. And I just will pass it on to someone else.
Glenn?
Thank you. Mark, I want to say that I am very pleased with this process that we've gone through. You and John and Josh have put together a clear presentation of this. You have listened to us in the workshop and made certain adjustments as it's moved forward. And so I'm very pleased and grateful to you for taking that sort of approach. I would like to just highlight one thing. What did you tell us the cost of this new fire engine would be?
The fire fleet, sir?
Aren't we acquiring a new fire engine?
Well, we're acquiring an entire.
As they refer to it.
Yes, sir. We're acquiring an entire fleet, approximately $6 million.
Excellent. And my highlight point about that is that you're not asking us to write a check for $6 million. Rather, what you're doing is you are financing this over a term through a lease And to me, when you have equipment that is depreciating in value over time, you lease it and turn it back over at the appropriate time at the end of the lease. So that is a way to save us significant money, and I appreciate that. So thank you again for a clear process. That's it, Mr. Mayor.
Are there any other questions before we go to the vote? Wish to call the vote, please.
Tom has his hand up.
Tom, you have your hand up, sir?
Yeah, thank you, John. It's not a question, it's really a comment. I think it's important for you to know, John, and for council to know that I spent my time on evaluating and analyzing the sources of revenue in this year's budget with John Troyer and Mark Orlando. I also spent some time reviewing the expense in detail, and where there are significant increases, I understand the reasons for those increases. I reviewed in detail the CIP. I am totally comfortable with the recurring and non-recurring sources of funds being used in that CIP budget. I think for the first time, perhaps since I've been on council, I am really, really comfortable in proceeding. Now, that's not to say that there won't be variances as we go forward into fiscal 2022. We all know that there will, but at least I think we understand the sources of revenue and the reasons for any expense increases, and with those I am comfortable. One final comment I think needs to be made as it pertains to Alex's question on the ATAX grants and the ATAC. I am also very, very comfortable with the ATAC and the way it functions, almost to the point where I am prepared to take their recommendations carte blanche. I participated in a couple of their committees leading up to this year's in-cycle and out-of-cycle grants. I think that committee functions very, very well. I think the application process and the evaluation of the applications also functions well. So, Alex, I think that committee really does their job, and you are asking the right questions and bringing the points up as they should be. But those points and those questions should be filtered through the ATAC prior to getting to us, and they have been. John, those are my comments.
Mayor,
David?
if I may, thank you. I've been on the council for over 5 years now. This is the first time I felt that we had a budget that was investing in the future. And I hope that the community understands that's a reason for optimism. And so I really appreciate the work that's been done. And Glenn said it well when he said the process worked for me. Thank you very much.
Okay. Wish to call the roll?
Yes, sir. Excuse me. Mr. Brown?
Support.
Mr. Ames?
Yes.
Mrs. Becker?
Yes.
Mr. Lennox?
Yes.
Yes.
What?
Mr. Stanford?
Okay.
Yes.
Mr. Harkins?
Yes.
Mr. Harkins?
Yes.
I have to have him on the phone.
Yeah, we'll count him as abstaining at this point.
And Mayor McCann?
Yes.
He's gonna be.
Motion carries, sir.
Okay, I thank you all. I thank Mark and the staff for all the work they've done on this budget. It's been very enlightening, and I feel very, very comfortable with it all the way.
Well, thank you. May I say a quick thank you?
Yes, you may.
To all of you, Town Council, for your time and your direction. Gosh, I can't believe we pulled this off in such a short amount of time. To this guy here, Josh, and definitely to John and his amazing team. I know I thank Zendaya and Erica, but he's got an entire team behind him, and we have some great senior staff members here that rolled their sleeves up with me as literally on day one to start figuring out the budget according to what I was anticipating you all were looking for. So
thank you.
Appreciate it very much.
Thank everybody. Motion to adjourn, please. Tammy? Good, all in favor? Motion, meeting adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody. Appreciate it. Yes, Phil. You can't take a vote.
The broadcast of